circles of life that we held, and it was at that big church over at Cooperoo. And the place was packed. It was pretty unexpected. We didn't know what to expect. And we were walking over from the speakers were walking over from the presbytery, and someone said to us, "You'll be speaking from the pulpit. You're sitting up at the altar and you'll be speaking from the pulpit." And I went, "Oh, geez, I don't know how I feel about that. Good Catholic girl, don't go near the pulpit." And Di Fingleton, who was the former Chief Magistrate, who was a speaker, who was wrongly convicted and imprisoned, she said, "Oh, geez, fantastic. I've always wanted to do that. I can't wait to get into the pulpit." And I just thought it was a really good lesson. That's why she was the Chief Magistrate, And it's a great lesson. It was a great lesson for me, and it was a great lesson, I think, for other women, that if you're given the chance to speak, you've got to take it and you've got to own it. And if you don't want to own it on behalf of yourself, then own it on behalf of other women. And that's kind of the power of the Circles of Life Forum. And that's the wonderful stories that we've heard tonight from Wendy and from Diane and from Bev. They were stunning, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. On ABC's Q&A program, there has been criticism in the past because they haven't had enough women on the program. Some nights there have only been one female talking head. And the producer came out and said, actually, we try and get women on the program, but they say no. In fact, they say, no, I won't do it, but I can give you the name of 3 other women who'll be very good, but not me. And they were afraid of a couple of things at the time: online abuse, which is directed primarily at females, and also they just didn't like the combative sort of talk over each other style of those sort of programs. Women, brilliant listeners, lousy interrupters. So the producer also said that she constantly gets emails and calls from men, young and old, who'll say, "Gee, I'd be absolutely brilliant on your program, and you should give me a spot." What do we make of that, I think you've got to own your voice, and you've got to stop saying no when you get asked to talk at things. I used to not like public speaking. I spent many years as a columnist to start with, saying no to speaking engagements. I thought my skill was that I liked to write very quietly behind a desk, wearing jeans most of the time. But then I got involved in Second Chance, and we're a committee that fundraises and assists homeless women and also the domestic violence shelters throughout Queensland. And I felt then that it was an obligation that you had to speak on behalf of people who haven't got a voice. I heard Quentin Bryce talking in a room one night, and she said, "I'm afraid that the whole family violence thing, the media circus will go on to the next thing, and even though we're talking about it now, in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, we'll still have the problem, but the attention will be gone from it." So I thought about that, and I thought, okay, well, what small thing could I do? And I thought, okay, I made a pledge that no matter where I was invited to speak at, I would always speak about family violence as well. And so, I get asked to schools or corporate breakfasts and Rotary, Probus, the men's shed. And so they invite me as guest speaker, and they want to know all about the newspaper world and media. And then I talk about those things. But about halfway through, I then segue very seamlessly into family violence and why they should support shelters. And the men always get this look on their faces like those puzzled puppies. Wasn't she supposed to talk about newspapers? But the brilliant thing is, then they kind of come around and they get on board. And invariably at the end of it, they do a whip round and they give you money. I mean, I was at University of the Third Age a couple of weeks ago, and they did a whip round at the end and they gave you $750. I mean, these are lovely retired people, and so that taught me a lesson. And also, whenever I'm leaving one of those events, and it doesn't matter if it's a corporate event, it doesn't matter sort of what suburb you're speaking in, there's always someone who will quietly come up to you and say, "You actually were talking about my life," or "I grew up with a really violent father," or "My daughter is trapped in that at the moment and we're trying to get her out." And so And so that's taught me a really interesting lesson, to give a voice to the voiceless whenever you can and tell their story, or to tell someone else's story. Women's stories is absolutely vital. And that's why the project that Cal was talking about, the Rural Women's Project, is one which obviously we're all going to go online and donate money for. Because you can donate really small amounts, but if we all do it, it actually ends up being a really large amount and makes something possible.